Tonight I'm going to share something with you that I've never shared before publicly, but it's so important, so pay attention. Look at me. I'm a regular Chabad guy. Grew up in an Orthodox community, went to a Jewish day school, have a great group of friends, an amazing family, successful business. I'm just your average, normal guy, except I'm not. That's because I suffer from a disorder that disrupts my life on a daily basis. Obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. Most people think that OCD is just when you want to get your house clean. You say, hey, I'm just being OCD. While that's based on the truth, it couldn't be farther from it. OCD is a living hell. OCD is having unwanted and intrusive thoughts playing in your head over and over and over again without any ability to stop them. Let me give you an example. Everybody's got a little filter in their brain that tells them when danger is coming. For example, if somebody came over to you and extended their hand to give you a handshake, your mind will play out the dozens of possibilities. Is this person going to grab my hand and punch me in the face? Did he just come from milking the cow and it's really just a prank? Or is it just a friendly gesture? Eventually your head processes through all of that and comes up and decides that it's a friendly gesture and allows you to shake that person's hand. Not my brain. My brain keeps spewing all the scary things that could happen. See, OCD is not really when you like to get your house clean, it's the opposite. It's what happens if you don't allow your house to be clean. What happens if you don't give in to that impulse? Is it frustrating? Is it annoying? Is it distracting, but then you move on with your day? Or does it absolutely disrupt your life like it does mine? It brings on intense anxiety into my life. Anxiety that makes my chest expand and I feel heated in my chest. An anxiety where I feel stress in my head that feels like fear. Kind of like the fear that when the second you get that phone call, that your house burnt down. Not a minute later that when you can process it and say, hey, we have insurance, that's okay. But that first second, it's the anxiety that you get when you find out that your Amazon account worth millions of dollars is shut down. That, oh shoot moment. It's the anxiety you feel when you were caught red-handed and now you know you're going to be kicked out of school for the third time. That's the anxiety that I live with on a daily basis. It sends stress down my back and my back tightens up. It makes me so anxious, kind of like when you're on a road trip and you're going miles and miles and there's no bathroom, but you got to go badly. I'm dealing with that every minute. See, a regular person, when they leave their house, they walk out, they close the door, and then suddenly the warning bells go off in their head. Tells them, oh, maybe you lost your keys. Maybe you left your keys inside. At that moment, everybody has anxiety, a healthy level of it, because anxiety could be a good thing. My brain doesn't work that way. The second, what your brain will tell you in order to get that instant relief will say, why don't you check your pocket? You check your pocket. Oh, my keys are there. Everything's okay. You get that relief. The second I check my pocket and take my hand out, my brain says, hey, maybe you left your keys. Now, I know I just checked, and I know they're just there. But my brain starts playing tricks on me. It says, well, would you rather get stuck without your keys or just, one more time, stick your hand in just to check? And I stick my hand back in. And then I take it out, and then again. Maybe you left your keys. Over and over and over again. When I leave my house, it's kind of like routine now. I check all pockets. I got my phone, I got my wallet, I got my keys. I got my phone, I got my wallet, I got my keys. Always in that order. I never mix it around. Because if I do, I know the amount of stress and anxiety. I wouldn't be able to function as a human being if I mixed them up. I never carry a wallet, by the way, because that's too many things. I don't have enough pockets, especially in the summertime. Let me introduce you to an 8-year-old Sruli. I don't remember now what intrusive thought I was having, but the compulsion I had was that I needed to look at the lights. Now, let me go back and tell you, it can be as irrational as looking at a light. I don't know why or what my head tells me. If you look at the lights now, it's going to satisfy that invasive thought. So at first my head said, my brain just told me, just glance at the lights. And I would do that from time to time. When that wasn't enough, it told me stare at the lights. So I would stare at the lights for 3 seconds. When my head told me that's not satisfying this endless loop of anxiety, I started staring at the light for 10 seconds. I'd get these big red marks in my eyes when I'd look away. You see, OCD is like having a gun to your head. It doesn't matter how silly the act or the thought is, just do it. That's the only way you'll get instant relief. And if, God forbid, you ignore it, the levels of anxiety that you'll get are not for functioning human beings. So I'd look at the lights. Every once in a while, I'd get looks from classmates and adults in shul or wherever, and it was embarrassing. From time to time, someone would say, Sruli, what are you doing? And I'd be humiliated. I'd feel my face turning beet red. I'd feel my limbs going limp. Kind of the feeling that you feel when you get caught red-handed. I didn't know how to defend what it was. I didn't know why I was looking at the light, so how can I explain it to someone else? This went on for some time until somebody, some self-proclaimed therapist told my parents, don't worry, I'll take care of it. I'm going to knock it out of him the old school way. Sat me down in a room, said, Sruli, look at the lights 10 times. I was really embarrassed. I didn't know what to do. So I sheepishly looked up at the lights 10 times, and he said, good, now look at me. If you look at the lights again, I'm going to send you to the mental home, where they put people in straitjackets and they don't feed people. Look at me. If you look at the lights again, you're going to end up in the mental home. You can imagine what type of fear that struck in me. And I looked at the lights again. Not because I wanted to, but because I had such anxiety in my chest at that time that I needed to satisfy, that I took the chance. The guy picked up the receiver, started dialing numbers. I still feel today how petrified I was and how I had to make my case to this man by crying bitter tears that I deserved a spot amongst the sane people, that I didn't belong in a mental home. But at 8 years old, I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to explain myself. I didn't know what OCD was. So I begged and I begged and I begged until he hung up the receiver. I guess he was trying to scare it out of me. And it worked. At least publicly. Because in private, my OCD got worse and worse and worse. When I was alone or in a room or when people weren't looking or in my head, it got worse and worse and worse. And this went on throughout my childhood, adolescent years, teenage years. By the time I turned 19, it got so bad, I was barely functioning. I got depressed. I got sad. I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. Part of OCD is that you imagine things. You tell yourself stories. So the story I told myself was I had done something wrong to God, and he was punishing me for it. So I did everything in my power to appease him. I started wearing my hat and jacket. I did everything in the playbook right. I started wearing my hat and jacket from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep. I made sure I said every word in davening. And if I didn't say it right, I went back and said it again. Another OCD thing. And if, of course, that wasn't enough, I made sure I said the word twice, and then 3 times, and then the whole paragraph. I was saying davening 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Everybody goes to the mikveh once a day. I was going 3 times a day. As a Lubavitcher, you know that the Rebbe always said that when something was wrong, he told people to check their tefillin. So I'd get my tefillin checked a month after I had previously gotten it checked, hoping that I'd be able to find them puzzles so I can identify what this issue was. I was so confused. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't identify it, and I couldn't reach out for help for 2 reasons. Number 1 is I didn't know what it was. Number 2 is, look at me. You're going to end up in the mental home. So I kept silent. All this went unnoticed by Hanhala of the yeshiva because it all went under the guise of, wow, look how chassidish Sruli is becoming. He's davening longer. He's so attentive to his learning. Look how chassidish he is. But inside I was a mess. Outside I was normal. Inside I was a mess. I kind of felt like when you open up too many tabs on your computer and then you hear the fan kicking into overdrive. That was my head on a constant basis. I was dying for somebody to just reach out to me and say, what's wrong? Maybe we can help you. Somebody showed me a motivational speaker that doesn't have hands or legs. So to most people that was very motivating, but to me, I envied him. I envied him because everybody was able to see what his issue was. Everybody knew what his problem was. But me, I was suffering inside. And I couldn't get it out. It got to the point where that summer I was net activity director in Camp Gan Yisrael, Montreal. I was pre-punishing myself for things that I thought I did wrong to God. If 20 minutes before a night activity came up, I thought I was undeserving to be successful that night, I'd sabotage it. I'd come late so people would hate me. I'd purposely not say the good lines so everything would fall flat. By the time the summer was finished, I'd only done 20% of the prepared material. I did a great job, but only 20% of the prepared material for that summer. This went on for about 1.5 years until I came across a 7th grade textbook on psychology. I was flipping through it. Interesting, I love to learn new things. Page open to obsessive compulsive disorder. Looks interesting. Started reading. I started noticing as I see the symptoms, one after another, I started relating to them. I'm saying, hey, this is the anxiety that I suffer from. These are the thoughts that I think. I remember feeling immense relief, knowing that there was a term to what I was feeling. Because up until that moment, I actually believed that I was crazy. I thought that I actually did belong in a mental home. I just thought people were being nice to give me the best shot at life. Let that just sink in for a second. How sad is it that I was so desperate for help, and the way I found it was a 7th grade textbook on psychology. I was so relieved because there was a name for it. I was so relieved because I wasn't alone. There were other people suffering from this, and it was common. And I was so relieved most of all because there was help. There was therapy available for this. It took me a while to gather the courage to tell anybody about it, even though I knew what it was and I was suffering daily. Because I was worried about what people would say. I was worried about what people would think of me. I was aware of the stigma of the name somebody that sees a therapist or a psychologist has in our community. After gathering the courage, I put together a few links on the subject, and I sent out an email to my parents and I wrote, "This is me, nothing else." To their credit, they flew me back to Montreal. It took us a couple of tries to figure out what was going on. And they put me in touch with a therapist, a psychologist, very famous psychologist, and started me on my journey to where I am today. Don't get me wrong, it's not easy. It's still a daily battle. It's still an hourly battle. It's still a battle I fight every minute. On average, it's 15 seconds go by between every single episode. I don't always win. I do most of the time. But you can imagine the sheer intensity of the anxiety I have on a regular basis, just fighting these thoughts. Just the other day, my 3-year-old Malka, she's a ball of energy. She's the life of the party. She's like the poster child for the saying joie de vivre. So she likes to stay up until I get home to say goodnight to me. She stays up in her bed. The second she hears the key turning in the door, she bolts out of bed. She runs towards me. I'm halfway through the door. She's already doing a running leap, and I scoop her up in my arms. And usually within about 5 seconds, she's beeping my nose. My job is to provide the noise for the beep. So literally this happened last week. Just like regular, I turn the key in the door. She's already halfway through the hallway. She does her running leap. I scoop her up, and on cue, within 5 seconds, she beeps my nose. And I ignore her. Now, she's the type of kid that when she smiles, her whole face smiles with it. And I watch her smile and her joy from me being home and from her having her regular routine of beeping my nose and getting that noise. I watch her smile, her face go from joy to confusion. She waits a couple of seconds, and then she tries again. This time, I ignore her again. Now I see her face go from confusion to sadness. I can see on her face, she's like, "Where's my tati from the regular routine?" And that killed me. I didn't ignore her because I wanted to. I ignored her because I had to. I had dealt with so much that day that I just couldn't deal with another thing. I had to close my eyes and do deep breathing in order to just be a functional human being. I did that for a couple of minutes, and then I was able to get back to myself. But that moment was already gone. Why am I telling you this? Why am I telling you all these stories? I'm not doing it for your pity. I don't pity me. Neither should you. I'm doing this for the 8-year-old Sruli out there. I'm doing this for the 19-year-old Sruli out there. The 8-year-old Sruli that's being told he belongs in a mental home, I'm here to tell you, you do not belong in a mental home. This is not your identity. You don't have to make it your identity. For the 19-year-old Sruli out there, I'm here to tell you, it's okay. There's help. No matter how dark it seems right now, no matter how hard, and you don't believe me that there's help, I promise you there is. You know, I used to believe that I was strong because I showed strength. But now I know that I'm strong because I'm able to show weakness. You don't have to let it become your identity. Not only that, over time, I was even able to take it and turn this tragedy into a positivity. I took all the skills I learned from fighting OCD on a daily basis, and I applied it into my life. I applied it into my personal life. I applied it into my professional life. And I applied it into my social life. In some ways, I even have an advantage over the average Joe. Because most people go by their life without working on themselves. They live the status quo. I wake up every morning with boxing gloves on, and they don't come off until I go to sleep at night. It's kind of like the rabbit and the tortoise and the hare. It may take me 4 times as much effort to get through something, but I promise you, I will win that race every single time. I'm more persistent than the average person. I'm more empathetic than the average person. I'm a much better strategic thinker. And eventually, over time, I was able to take the look at me, you're going to end up in the mental home, and turn it into look at me. Look at me now. Look at me now. I have an amazing, loving, patient wife, who, by the way, thanks to her, I'm able to be here today. And I'm her husband, her supportive husband. Look at me now. I have 3 adorable kids, each one cuter than the next. And I'm their supportive father. Look at me now. I built a 8-digit successful business that's growing rapidly. Look at me now. Look at me now. I'm the leader of this amazing team you saw up here tonight that I am blessed to have in my life. Look at me now and look at me in 10 years from now. Let me play for you the voices I hear now when I deal with OCD. If I can do this. Here.
We love you, Papi. We understand you. Thank you for working so hard. We support you. We're always here for you.
I want everyone in the crowd to look to your right. Look at the person sitting next to you. Now look to your left. Look at the person sitting next to you on your left. Look in front of you. Look at the person sitting in front of you. Look behind you. Look at the person sitting behind you. Now, statistics state that if it's not you, one of those people are suffering from a mental health disorder. That's right. Statistics state that 1 in 5 adults are suffering from a mental health disorder. Some statistics even say 1 in 4. Most, if not all, are suffering silently. My question and challenge to you tonight is, who will you be? What will you say? Will you be the one that says, look at me, you're going to end up in the mental home? Or will you be the one that says, look at me, it's okay. We're going to get you help. You could look at me. Thank you.